Is political Islam compatible with Western civilization? Take a look at this clip over here with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who is a former member of the House of Representatives in the Netherlands. She gives a bit of a history of Islam and addresses some of the issues and problems that we're asking ourselves in the West today. So let's watch this clip together and then talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
Were you telling Congress that Islam isn't a religion of peace?
I was telling Congress that Islam is part religion and part a political philosophy. And that if you focus only on the religious part, praying, fasting,
there you see nothing but peace.
I don't see anything but peace.
Right.
If people want to pray and fast and be together peacefully, have their rituals, I think that's protected, and I don't think that necessarily leads to any kind of violence. You may object to it if you're not religious, but it is religion as we understand it, as the founding fathers, as the framers of the institution might have understood it.
Yes.
But then there is Islam, which is really the major part of Islam, which is a political philosophy. It's a prescription for how society ought to be built, how society ought to be furnished, governed. And that philosophy is not compatible with our American constitutional liberal democracy or any other secular type of government. And that's what we need to be discussing. It's a set of ideas, a set of principles, values, and there are people who are committed to not only practicing it, but also to promoting it. And some of them are so committed to it that it's not enough for them to establish it within their own societies. They want it to rule the whole world.
So here, crude question, but it's going to be on everybody's mind. Yeah. And that question is, how big is the problem? 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. That's a little over a fifth of the population of the entire planet.
That's right.
And are you saying to us, we have a problem with 1.6 billion? Or are you saying we're simply drawing the line in the wrong place? That somehow or other, if you look at you're looking only for some tiny sliver of the population that is radical, terrorist, and so forth, you're missing something. We're drawing the line in the wrong place. Or are you saying the religion and the prescription for how to organize human society are so tightly intertwined that the problem is indeed with Islam itself?
I think the distinction I want us to make first and foremost is the distinction between the doctrine, Islamic political doctrine, and human beings, the adherents. So let's say we agree on just what the basic facts are. The Prophet Muhammad founded a religion that then he later, 10 years into the religion, he developed into a political doctrine, and that evolved over time. There were conquests. Islam was an empire, and it's the doctrine that governed that empire. On the one hand. On the other hand, there are the human beings. There are the 1.5 or 1.6 billion people out there. And one Muslim varies from another. There is a great deal of diversity. There is diversity of geography, diversity of language, of gender, of income, of age. There is a great deal of diversity among Muslims. The most important one to us is there are some Muslims who, when they look at Islam, they just choose what is religious about it. Again, the praying, the fasting, the community, or the communal rituals.
And you're saying...
and then there are Muslims who say, no, that's not enough. It's not enough to be Muslim in the religious sense only. You have to accept and abide and practice and promote Islam also in its political sense. And it's that group. I don't know how big they are. But in terms of drawing lines, I think that's where we need to start.
I see. All right. So let me... You write in The Challenge of Dawah, your testimony before Congress, your book Heretic, calling for a reformation of Islam. You're, of course, aware of the whole history of Islam, but you're talking about the present moment and what the West, the United States in particular, needs to do. However, let me ask you to address the history for a moment. And the argument of which you're well aware runs simply as follows. It takes a moment to set this up, but it's an important question. Islam emerges in the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century. And within a century, it has swept across North Africa, which had been substantially Christian. In other words, there is a conquest that takes place.
Yes.
And by the middle of the 8th century, they're as far north as central France. We have the Battle of Tours. And for 7 centuries, Islam holds most of what we call Spain today. And then in the 16th century, they conquer Constantinople, and a couple of decades later, the world of Islam is prevented from dominating the Mediterranean only because the wind happens to favor the Venetian fleet at the Battle of Lepanto.
Yeah.
And then we have, as recently as 1683, Muslim armies lay siege to Vienna. That's the one that is so striking to me. 1683 is 20 years after, a little more than 20 years after the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock.
Yeah.
And Islam is still attempting to invade Central Europe.
Yeah.
Okay. So the argument would run.
And don't forget India, don't forget parts of Asia, don't forget Africa. Okay.
So, all right, you not only grant the argument, you're heightening it, so to speak.
Yes, yes.
And the argument would run, thank you very much for attempting to reassure us, but truly we need to be wide awake. This really is a clash of civilizations, and there is something within Islam which has demonstrated for all 14 centuries an animus, an aggressiveness toward the West. The problem is Islam itself. How do you deal with that argument?
I think, again, you have to go to the political blueprint. If you take the American founding fathers, it's about 200 and something years old. It's a relatively young philosophy.
Oh, I see. Yep.
Yeah.
By comparison with Islam, it's young. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even if you take classical liberalism, these are relatively young ideas. And then even younger, you get to communism and all the rest of it. So if you think of Islam as a political philosophy, it's really one of the oldest ideas, one of the oldest governing principles. It's not Western. It is not as organized, and it doesn't make logical sense to the Western mind, the Western mind of today. I think back then, if you read some of the works of, Gibbons and beyond that, they seemed to have understood what they were dealing with back then. But today, it seems to me that there are very few people in the West who really think that they understand the layeredness of Islam. That's why we need qualifiers like radical and extreme and fundamentalist. These are all words. This is a vocabulary that we use for Christianity and for Western phenomena that we then try to put on a different civilization. So I think first we have to acknowledge, yes, this is an old political philosophy. It's been around for a long time, and we don't understand it. Part of it is also we don't want to understand it. Why don't we want to understand it? I don't know the answer to that question, but again, let me speculate. If you get deep into the values and the principles that are promoted from within the political Islamic doctrine, and you put them next to our, Western political ideas,
yes,
you get to a place of zero-sum games.
Either it's that or it's that. They're incompatible.
It becomes
no
binary.
society can be both.
Yeah, no society can be both. And the contemporary Western mind is taught to collaborate, to cooperate, to compromise. Pluralism, tolerance, all to me fantastic ideas and a fantastic attitude toward the world. But sometimes you get to a place where it is impossible to compromise. And I think deep down, the contemporary Western mind it's not that we don't get it, it's that when you get it, then what?
Right.
That's a very interesting point. If you get it, then what? Because, the Western mindset ultimately revolves around, hey, if we have two differing viewpoints, we can still get along. You ever see the coexist bumper stickers, which is sort of like the ideal and certainly in the more liberal leaning view of the world, that we can all coexist. And truthfully, anyone in the West believes that we can coexist. You have your ideas, your your religion, your worldviews, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, we can kind of coexist. But what she's saying over here is that embedded in the political manifestation of Islam, that when you get to, when push comes to shove, it's either one or the other. The West maybe wants to coexist and has that as a mindset of something that it's open to, but political Islam doesn't seem to have that same mindset. And so if a group does not have that mindset, if one is willing to coexist and say, but the other that is intolerable to that, then there's not going to be much of a coexistence. And I think she points out a very interesting point over here, and that's why people don't want to understand this. They don't want to come to terms with it, because once you come to terms with what the root of the issue is, what do you do with that? I'd love to hear your comments below, and if you like this content overall, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.